It's the middle of April, and it's time to plant.
Oh, Pittsburgh soil.
Hello. Welcome back to Pittsburgh Home Garden. I hope you have been very well. We are going to do some planting today on this very dreary day here in beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The weather here has actually been trash. It's real nippy out. And after a random week of like 70-degree weather, for the last 2 weeks, it hasn't been higher than about 43. And the nighttime temperatures are dipping way below. But I am trying to be proactive today and get ahead of the curve because we are coming up on some warming up days. I'll be jumping over to the West Coast for a couple days, do some business deals, hopefully get some money running around here. But until then, let's go ahead and get some planting done. Now, as you can see, I have a different setup going on here. Instead of my 72 cell tray, I actually wanted to do an experiment to show that people who struggle in those trays can actually grow their seeds in a very small little contained space. So as you can see here, I have well over 20 to 30, sometimes even 100 plants in these tiny spaces because the warmth that was required to, actually germinate was much more evenly spread. I often find that with the big seed cell trays, sometimes half of the tray may not get the same amount of warmth as the other half, depending on, how big your heat mat is, how many plants you're like trying to heat up at the same time. So if you find yourself actually running into that problem, a lot, and especially with the season getting closer and closer, go ahead and try these little cups because you can still pack in tons of plants and probably get a bit more of a success rate overall with your seeds. So let's go ahead and get the planting with this kale. All right, so here we are in the big bed, which right now is looking like an unedited film. I guess it's so messy, but I see the shots. I see the vision. The vision is going to happen. I just did a lot of weeding, determine, where the beds are a bit more. And now I get to determine how I want my wonderful kale to grow. Now, anybody who is familiar with the channel knows that I am a man of tall kale. I do want to replicate that. So because I know that my kale grows super tall and super healthy, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the back row of the bed between, 4 or 5 different beds. The reason being, my sun is coming from over here on this side in the morning. And then it settles right behind me where this row will actually get tons of late afternoon sun. I'm going to put it right here along this end by itself. So if I need to cover them with some insect netting, I can go ahead and do so without disturbing any other plants. And also, give them the space that they actually need. This is the pleasure of having a big old bed. So for anybody who is actually deciding to go ahead and follow this like small space method, know that when you pull these babies out of their tiny little container, the roots will be tangled, of course. And you have to know and have the confidence within yourself to know that you're not going to break these. You totally can be a bit more rough with the roots than I believe what we give credit to. I just did the man thing. Oh no, I'm a meme. So when you're getting ready to separate these, just have the confidence in yourself that you're not going to destroy them. And actually, you can kind of break it up in your hand like this, loosen them up a bit more. And now you have tiny chunks with, 3 or 4 just sitting in there. Before we move on to our next plant, a quick word from our sponsor. Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Sometimes on a quiet Saturday before I get to see my nieces and my nephews, I really like to just take in the beautiful artwork that is provided in the novel known as ABC's in the Garden. My wonderful little children's book is actually filled with over 32 pages of coloring goodness for any child that's around your life. Packed to the brim with educational content and double page layouts, this is the type of book that you can actually participate with the child who is coloring by teaching them about the garden, different vegetables in the garden, and of course, what these pieces of food actually look like coming straight out of the garden. This book has been a passion project for me, and I would just like to say thank you to all the folks who have sent me pictures of the young ones in their lives actually coloring and scribbling and learning. Thank you so much for your support. And if you would like to purchase a copy of ABCs in the Garden, please check the Amazon link below and it should queue you right on up. Thank you. Now back to the gardening. All right, so next on the list, I'm going to go ahead and go for a twofer. I have some collard greens and my Brussels sprouts. So along the same vein of, the thought behind planting my kale in the back, I'm actually going to do the same thing with my Brussels sprouts because I also know that these grow pretty tall. So these are going to be in the back row with the kale, soaking up all the afternoon sun without blocking any of the other plants in the bed during the morning time. And for the collard greens, because I've never grown them, my thinking is I might give these their own little space in the garden because I want to be one of those people who have the collard greens, as big as their damn head. I want to be that at the end of the summer. So I'm going to give these as much space as I think that they need. And they're going to have their own little bed, nice in the back. Go ahead and fill that baby up.
5 minutes later.
I see that collard greens are actually supposed to be spaced 15 to 24 inches apart. That's almost 2 feet apart, which I am certainly not going to do right here, but I will give them at least 10 to 12 inches and just see how they go. I imagine if I keep up on the lower leaves, maybe they won't seem so crunched. We'll see. And of course, as always, when you are planting and your seedlings are a bit long, you want to make sure to get a hole deep enough to where you can pile a little bit of soil around them and make sure they are sitting up nice and clean like that. So next on the planting list, I'm actually going to go with my leeks and my onions, but I am going to put these in 2 separate places in the yard. So we are actually in the potato patch on the side of my yard. I imagine my potatoes are doing just fine, but I haven't seen any leaves sprout up yet. So we're still playing the waiting game with that. But with the onions, I am putting my tropea onions, which are these large red onions that I actually have never successfully grown. I've able to get little small ones that look like regular sized onions, but I want the big babies. So I am going to set these over here in the potato patch because this patch is actually at the very end of my yard, which is the end of a slope. So I can look out my window when it rains and actually see like tons of runoff happen down here. And that is why I put the potatoes here. So under that same thinking, why not put some very, very thirsty onions over here as well? Nothing will try your patience as a gardener as much as planting onions because they're so stringy and you're just making these little divots all over the place. And of course, there's 1,000 onions, but we are over here at what will become my corn patch. And I'm putting my corn over here for the same reasons I'm deciding to put my pompele onions over here. And it's because it's at the end of another slope. This year, I'm really trying to utilize what happens in my yard naturally. I understand that this bed here is actually a huge runoff and actually holds water pretty damn well after every storm because of the slight slope that's right next to it. So I am deciding to put my pompele onions, which are these very small, kind of very tasty white onions that take a much shorter time to grow compared to my tropele onions over there. So I think this will be an amazing bed where it's going to get tons of water, it'll have the space, and then when I put my corn in here, it actually won't disrupt any of the roots at all. So moving on, we are actually going to put the spinach and calendula inside the greenhouse. Of course, here we are inside the greenhouse. That planting that I did last month certainly has had the best reaction inside the greenhouse, and that's not surprising. While the other plants in the big bed are growing, very slowly because they are dealing with the elements, the plants in here are exploding with growth. I imagine within the next month or so, I'll be able to do my first harvest of chard, and my carrots are blooming everywhere in here because the soil isn't dealing with any type of wind that would dry it out. So under that same kind of understanding of what's going on in here, I feel like it is certainly best to put my spinach in this bed right here, because spinach has always been a very finicky grow for me. I do get it, but sometimes outside, when it starts to actually put on its growth, that's immediately when we get an 80, 90-degree week at the beginning of the summer, which means it bolts very fast. So the plan is to set it here inside the greenhouse, let it soak up this warmth that is already being provided. That way, when it does get too hot in here, it will be June, but by that time I will have 3 or 4 harvests compared to maybe 1 that I get in the outside beds. All right, that spinach fit right in. Didn't have to move anything. I think that'll be perfect over there. But now for my calendula. I actually think I am going to put these inside of the grow bags simply because every year at the beginning of the season, I notice that my pollinators sometimes are a bit slow to the punch. Things like my sunflowers, they grow to be 12 feet tall, but that means the entire time they're growing, they're not budding, which means pollinators can't use them. And I've found the same problem with my alyssum, my morning glory, my other calendulas that I leave outside. So because these are already hardened off and cold hardy, I'm going to put these inside grow bags, leave them actually inside of the greenhouse. And then at the beginning of the season, when I find there are pockets without any pollinators around, I could just pick up the bag, put it over there for a couple days, and increase that and do that for as long as I really need to. And last but certainly not least, I have a tray here of heading lettuce. But for the video, I'm going to go ahead and call it. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. Please check out the Amazon link below if you would like to get a coloring book. And for anybody who's interested in learning the science behind gardening, please give the Patreon page a nice little checkout. See if you like it. Like to wish everybody a happy April. I'll be seeing you soon. But until then, I'll be here gardening.